Hi. Alright, let's see if I can lower this a bit. There we go. Okay. Uh, Proper villains. Let's go with that. A proper villain is not a one off character that's just there and gone or rarely occasionally comes back. A proper villain is the foil, is the one that's always there and isn't just defeated easily. You know, where okay, a proper villain. Let me explain myself here. Okay, in the 80s and early 90s, a proper villain was a mainstay villain. Was your, um, was the antagonist, the foil for the hero, and you always had the boss at the end of the series that the characters would fight. Pretty much. Well, it was thought that by the end of the series, you would at least fight the big baddie and defeat them. Now, okay, a bad mainstay villain is Cobra Commander. Cobra Commander is the antithesis of the self-defeating villain. In the G.I. Joe movie, it opens up with the League of Villains basically chewing out Cobra Commander because he constantly kept foiling their plans again and again and again because of his, um, basically his stupidity or his ego. He would demand too much. I remember him just constantly trying, wanting something that would go against the group or the plan, and it would inevitably just blow up in his face. Until they got to the point where, well, in the later seasons, where we saw Cobra was defeated by an unarmed Joe and a group of kindergartners on their playground. I'm not making that up. So basically, after you've done every single plot to turning young and having an alternate life in another dimension and having a made up life, which I think is one of the screwed up things they've done to a GI Joe character, which was shipwreck. Making him think he had a life, when in actuality it was all props and, quick clones. Man, that was like, damn, like that was dark. But anyway, like they made him think he had a family, but they were just quick clones. Like Jesus. Then they did the parody of Freddy Krueger, the whole dream thing. Um, yeah. So when you've done a lot of fanciful and meaningful episodes, like where else to go? You know. And but yes, a good mainstay villain would be, off the top of my head, I'd say Negaduck from Duckwing Duck, Disney's Duckwing Duck. Gotta pay tribute to our corporate overlords. Um, but the thing is that Negaduck, as often reoccurring, he's in a lot of episodes. Um, Overall, as compared to the crisis of the episode or the narrative of the episode and all the other villains, he's the one that comes off more often because he's fun, he's interesting to watch, and he's incredibly violent. Hey, look, a fuzzy wuzzy bunny. Where? It's like he doesn't even hesitate to grab the shotgun. Um, so you know the plans of a lot of villains. A good villain is that the hero doesn't just do next to nothing and then see the villain trip over his own feet. A good proper villain has plans and underlings. So, you know, by the end, when the hero does, at times, when they do go up against the big bad, they will be able to, it all comes down to this. It's been leading up to this. Um, a bad villain would be Shredder from the Ninja Turtles. He is He's much like Cobra Commander, where he constantly has these harebrained schemes and is occasionally on the battlefield, but constantly gets, well, his underlings get defeated left and right. They only were a threat for all of 5 seconds, and then after that, just are dispatched. They're handled and taken care of by the turtles incredibly easy. So a lot of Krang and Shredder's at times rather interesting plots to do evil are rather interesting, but easily foiled because it's just that easy to defeat them in every episode. It just gets a little too easy and repetitive. It's like as interesting of a plan at times as they were, it just gets defeatable. Mighty Max, on the other hand, with the Skullmaster, if I remember that name correctly, he was the overall series indicator, which was introduced at episode 1. That he's going to be the series long baddie. Even though he's going to have filler episodes and occasionally a couple of villains that come and go, and come back again, or reoccurring at least once or twice. Skullmaster is going to be the one trying to instigate a lot of what was going to be happening narratively. And the end of season 1 actually bothers to loop that, tie that in. So it actually resolves everything from the first episode. We see Max actually fight Skullmaster to a limited degree, or at least stand up to what he was doing. Again, he was still just a 10-year-old boy with a magic hat. And even with the last 30-second, forced in learning aspect of the story, it was still an action series, through and through. It was still pretty dang entertaining to watch. So that was a good, overlord boss to come up against. And there were others, if a series ever bothered to get that far, they would get so bloated on maintaining the status quo that a lot of series were just do a season or a pilot. Well, okay, a season, and then would just drop off. They never got any closer to actually resolving. So anything in this first season, first 12 episodes, and everybody and their grandmother, it's like, if you got a movie out, you got a 12-episode series, first season. But by the end, it was just more of the same. So what was started out in episode 1 still happened. The status quo was still maintained by the 12th episode. So it's just like, and we're off again. In case that, like, here we go again. So nothing was resolved. Nothing was, taken care of. But yeah, a good villain is a mainstay villain who's an entertaining villain who has intricate plans that aren't easily foiled. It takes a lot of brains and courage to take care of them. So that's why a good long-lasting series is where the villain is smart, is capable, and is likable to a certain degree. And there are many, many, many U.S.-based shows or other shows and cartoons, even from abroad and all that other stuff from Canada, Japan. That's another thing. Just I'm gonna put that in its own category. That's kind of separate from this. They're on a league, a planet. They're in their own dimension. Trust me on that. Where it comes to animations, I don't want to drag that into this because that's going to be just too big of a thing. But in basically Saturday morning cartoon supervillains, yeah, you knew them like basically by heart because they were just that awesome, Was it Count Dooku from Gummy Bears, if I remember his name? Or I call him Okie Dokie Dookie. And stop calling me Iggy. Okay, Dookie. Count Dooku. Draku? I forget. But anyway, the Count guy, much like everyone else, was defeated because, his minions were too stupid. Tough enough to pose a threat, but then stupid enough to not really, to be easily fooled and befuddled and thus defeated. Um, what was it? I just had it. It was another show where, um, dang, what was it? It was there were tons of villains, but they were good. They were good, proper villains. You know, elaborate plots, and there weren't. That's what it was. It was Chippendales Rescue Rangers. Fat Cat. Fat Cat was an interesting villain. He was in the pilot, and it was set up for his rivalry. Why he hated them, and I love the part where Monterey Jack throws him against the wall, and he throws eventually gets thrown against the wall, and he says it's impossible. He says what was it? He says I can't believe it. I hate him even more now. Can't be. I hate him even more now. It's funny, but when Fat Cat became a staple of one of their foils, pretty much the foil for them, those consistent foil, um, along with that's Professor Nimnall. You know, their plots were actually pretty good. For whatever corporate greed, or not corporate greed, but like whatever plot and scheme they had going was actually pretty interesting. It was intricate. It wasn't just, oh, obviously I got it, I figured it out in 30 seconds. So actually, this was actually had forethought. This was pretty good on the writers. So when the villain came up with their scheme, you know, when they wanted to make it kind of mysterious, it's like, what is going on? This is rather odd. Or, oh wait, that was for a bank robbery. It's like, wow, okay, that was ingenious. Or this is the problem they're kind of making in that episode. The whole thing, episode with the record, that wasn't really too much of a scheme. Well, it was a scheme, but it was an interesting scheme because I never. It was interest. It was interesting. Let's just put it that way. Um, it was unique, but the thing was that a good villain is hard to beat. They will not just set themselves up so you could just go tink and then they fall over. Ah, there you're defeated. Like what was it in the Powerpuff Girls where they wanted the professor to dress up, and play with them. So he's all like, if I defeat the villain, can I go back to work? He says yes. He goes, fly, 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 fly. Zap, the Powerpuff Girl in the dragon costume falls over, and he goes fly, 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 fly back out the door. And that's the thing, is that shows try to cut corners and try to give the minimal amount of effort, and they weren't good shows. Case in point, The Karate Kid. The Karate Kid had their movie franchise, and now Cobra Kai, now on YouTube. Uh, but the animated TV shows was only like 10 episodes or whatever, and it was interesting, but it was kind of stupid because they had their MacGuffin magical thing that constantly people keep losing the damn thing by the end of the episode. So wherever they come across, wherever it lands, it's like, ooh, I found this thing. Either good or bad person, and tries to use its powers. They would come in, Karate Kid and Company and Co. would come in, solve a problem, and then someone would drop it or throw it or lose it, and like, oh darn, he dropped it down the sewer. Guess we're gonna have to mosey on along and find it wherever it may go. And so nothing was ever really resolved by the end of the series. It wasn't brought back to wherever it was. They didn't really do anything. You know, it was never really any one real big bad. It was just one situation they find themselves after another, wherever that thing goes. And Bucky O'Hare was a good series too. The Toads again, a military force, something strong enough to be maintain a threat, but dumb enough to fall for what was it, the old made you look thing, or They would fall for easy enough pranks, but they're not that smart. The staple of the underling and the massive droves of the invading force. But heaven forbid would actually make them intimidating. They're like, oh no, it looks like we're doomed. They would do that with overwhelming force a few times in series, but those were always brushed aside with, oh, and then they were defeated at the end. The Phantom Menace ending, where they were all defeated because he blew up something, so it defeated all the bad guys, which were robots and whatever. Um, yeah, so a good villain, a proper villain, is lasting. You know, a good villain. Not like Doctor. Was it Wiley from Mega Man? The evil guy. It's like I have this scheme, and it's pretty sophisticated, but I am defeated every single time by. Dr. Wiley was never a threat. His schemes were just bizarre and not really nonsensical. Action Man actually had a themed villain because themed villains because one of them actually kept trying to make the perfect human race out of multiple things, multiple processes to try to create that ideal. At least that made it interesting to see what the heck he's going to pull out of his hat this week to try and create the ideal. And Action Man comes in and defeats it. So actually, it has a lot of forethought, has a lot of interesting concepts. So we see things grow and change over the years to better and better quality, but then at times we just lost it. There would just be crappy. It's like we just kept dumbing things down. We go up to 13 and then we dumb things down for 6-year-olds. We build it back up and then we dumb it back down again. It's like, stop dumbing it down. It's okay to make things that would go over their heads. It's alright. If we like it enough, we'll watch it again until we get it. I watched the Digibrony, well, Digibro now. I used to listen to his podcasts and rants and videos like 6 times until I fucking understood it. It took me 4 times to watch the Matrix Revolutions ending to understand that Reloaded ending with a guy in the TV rooms, so I could finally understand what the hell he was talking about. I did not understand it the first time I saw it in theaters with my brother, I believe. Hey, Henry. You know, it's okay to have overly complicated stuff in TV shows and have it be for young teens. It's all right. That's why the Avatar was good because we had complex emotional characters. Plots and schemes were, well, few and far between, but at least they were decent. And everyone wants to be a good be the next Avatar, be, you know, cutting edge, be for intellectually, be something, but then they don't want to lose the money because then they gotta dumb everything down. MLP is just a train wreck of a series of what it tries to convey to us, and it just keeps missing the mark. It's like, no, over here, over here. And it's like, no, I'm definitely hitting, aiming at it, but I seem to keep missing the damn point every freaking time. It's like, just put a bit more time into this, and you will find out that you could make some really good stuff. That's why Venture Brothers is awesome. It's because they take 3 years, a couple years to make, years and years between seasons. Season 5 took 3.5 years. It was just, you it still holds a place in my heart. Certain seasons were not as good as others, but I wouldn't say they were boring. I just thought they were kind of meandered a little bit. But overall, it's still a series I hold in high praise because it proves to be awesome, and it's a parody of itself, of the genre, of the superhero genre, and uses it kind of more in practicality that, yeah, in practice, that would not really work out right. Like, yeah, characters that were good were turned out to be rather, you're a villain yourself, sir. No matter how many times you keep calling yourself a hero, it's like, you know, you are a villain. You know, just because you call yourself a professor or you do things for science, yeah, you're going to come off as, quite frankly, a jerk because you are a jerk. You choose selfish means and stuff. But whatever, that's a video for another time. Anyway, so what modern cartoons are trying to do is push the envelope and talk about new things, social dynamics, sexual orientation, the good, the bad, and the ugly, you know, morality, or at least they're trying anyway. They can't do morality for children because they keep screwing that up, because they keep rushing the plot so fast, like in that Sappy Squirrel episode, like I keep telling you about. Slapdash Redemptions, you know, and they did with Steven Universe, Slapdash Redemptions, even though you've mass murdered how many civilizations on how many planets, and it's like, well, we're not evil anymore. It's like, what? So again, a good villain is interesting and is not easily redeemed. You know, much like Discord, you have to try, try harder, stumble, fall, but keep trying. And yeah, Discord's only the real proper redeemed villain that actually was given time to redeem properly. That's why everyone else looks terrible because everyone keeps saying, "Yeah, sure, Slapdash Redemption, boom, done. Here's some authority. You who almost destroyed all life." Because I suddenly now see the error of my ways. Ugh. Alright, so, um, a good like Thundercats. Okay, let's go with Thundercats. Thundercats again is a good popular show because even though it had a lot of meandering, it was still interesting enough to see the plots. It had enough fantasy and sci-fi in it to show that when the villains and multiple groups of villains who had their own themes, so you never really confused anybody with anyone or said they were boring or uninteresting. You know, everyone had their own thing. But even with Mamra, who was leading this whole charge of evil doerness, you know, was able to do different things, was able to